Welcome everyone to Spiratus by Sideline Sports Network. Hope everyone's having a fantastic evening. Hopefully you've all gotten to eat supper so far. If not, after the show, make sure you get your eat on. Tonight's going to be an interesting episode. Yesterday I dropped my personal 2023 top 5 ACC list. Some people, of course, are wondering why I have Florida State ahead of Clemson, seeing how Clemson has won the ACC title in 2022, and seeing that we also lost to Clemson last year as well. The grading portion of this is specifically off of PFF grade and what is returning production. Seeing how Clemson beat us last year, we still finished in the top 25 above them. I think they finished at like, I don't know, 14 or 15. We finished at 11, something to that nature. So this is based off of preseason PFF grades only. Has nothing to do with last season's or the seasons before this. It only has to do with the PFF grade and the amount of production that we also brought into the program from the transfer portal. That really helps indicate why you would say that Florida State is ranked above anyone else in the ACC. Clemson hasn't, not to my knowledge, taken even one transfer person. As a matter of fact, they're still trying to get rid of one. Actually, they need to get rid of 4, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're at 89, and you have to be at 85 scholarship players. So the reason that I have Florida State ranked above them for that reason is the PFF grade, and also everything on paper states that we have more production returning. We also have a very senior quarterback, where they have a redshirt freshman quarterback who's only started 1 or 2 games. They've lost quite a bit of production on defense, and they've lost a lot of production on offense. So that's the reason why you see that I have Florida State at the number 1 position for the top 25. James just joined in, so I'm going to make sure I bring him on real quick. What's up, James?
What's going on?
Explaining why I have Florida State at the number 1 spot in the ACC over everyone else. Trying to make sure that everybody knows that that's my personal prediction and why I put Florida State at the top. And it has nothing to do with bias. It's not because I'm biased to Florida State. It's due to we finished in our rankings higher than Clemson. Due to also we won our bowl game, they lost theirs. We finished ahead of them in the top 25. We have 80, now it's supposedly 84.5% of our production returning, where they only have like 71. So I'm explaining why it's based off of pure paper. It's not based off of who won last year. It's not based off of who's been beating who for the past 5 or 6 years. It's purely based off of our paper says we're better than they are. So that's why it says that we're at number 1. That's also why a lot of ACC teams got upset with me because I didn't include them in the top 5. I don't know how Virginia or Virginia Tech could expect me to put them in the top 5, but they ring me pretty good for it. I don't know if you're still there or not. Your camera went off.
No, I'm here.
Okay. So, James, if you were, and you can get into this later if you want, but if you were to put a top 5 out for the preseason ACC, do you know what it would be, or do you want more time to come up with what you would say?
It'll be my honestly, I would say Miami. That's a lot. It'll be Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, NC State, and honestly, this is going to shock people, believe it or not, but I would say Duke. And that's just me going off the top of my head, not really going into too much deep details. You can't really pick Louisville. If Louisville's staff was similar, I may put in an argument for them. Clemson is who Clemson is. Um, they have a lot of question marks, but they're still Clemson until proven otherwise. North Carolina has a obviously a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback coming back, who will probably Drake May, who will probably be the top quarterback in the nation. NC State returns a lot. Duke returns a very good quarterback. It's some very good pieces for a team that really shocked and surprised a lot of people with a really, really good coach. And obviously, the only reason you would put Florida State at number one right now isn't because of what they were because of their record. It's the fact that just I think was it 87% of the production on both offense and defense returns. And when you actually look at offensively what they have, it's actually higher if you take away the defense. I mean, you've got your leading receiver, your leading rusher, your 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 obviously your quarterback as well. Actually, you have your top two leading receivers, if I remember correctly. Your leading rusher, quarterback, numerous people on the offensive line, and then and that's not even including if you add the production of what Jaheim Bell, not last year, but even if you added stuff last year, I believe if you go look at his total yardage, it's probably somewhere close to that 600 range. Because he had to play running back in some games, he played tight end, he was a Swiss Army knife what he did for South Carolina last year. But if you go back and you see the previous year, you'll see every reason why he was ranked the number one tight end returning in college football in all preseason polls last year. So you have to it's not a homer thing when you just purely look at what it is that they're bringing to the table and what they're doing. It's actually not that big of a stretch. Games still have to be played, though, however, and that's part of the reason why I would give Clemson number two, because Clemson does have a propensity to be able to get there, but it's hard to overcome that much talent that they've lost over the last couple of years, and they haven't really replaced it. And they're replacing coordinators and peoples as well.
I definitely agree. And my top five, in case anyone hasn't seen it, I did make a graphic for it. Florida State at number one, Clemson at number two, North Carolina at number three, Pitt at number four, and NC State at number five. And NC State and Pittsburgh were really close to me switching out, and Duke was this close to being put in the top five. The only reason that I did not put Duke above NC State or Pitt was due to the fact of they did lose quite a few guys. A couple left in transfer portal. Two or three went to Miami. Or two went to Miami. One went to Pitt. One also went to NC State. And those guys were production. They weren't just pieces that were behind. They were actual production pieces. So that's the reason why I dropped them below the top five. To start with, William McMillan, thank you for the $2 donation. And here is this question. What do you and James think of Miami's new air raid offense? Should Knowles Nation be worried? Well, let me put it like this before James gets into it. I am saving receipts all over the place for what everyone is saying about Miami's new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. The same way that last year I saved all of the receipts where people had Miami was going to be at the top of the ACC. They were going to be competing for an ACC title. That Tyler Van Dyke was going to win the Heisman Trophy Award. That Miami was going to go to the college football playoffs. I kept all of those receipts, and I've been putting them out throughout this season so far. And I'm keeping all the receipts that everybody's talking about right now, because I can't personally see what it is that everyone else sees in this offense and defensive coordinator. You've got an offensive coordinator that you just hired that was fired after 1 year at Kentucky. He was fired from Southern Miss, and midway through this past season in 2022 at Houston, his play calling duties were taken away from him. So if that is an elite hire and that is an elite offensive coordinator and that's an upgrade from a Broyles Award-winning Josh Gaddis from Michigan, if that's an upgrade, which I also have receipts for people that are saying this, that overall Miami has completely upgraded in the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions. I'm keeping receipts on people that are video saying this, and these are supposed to be reputable people that are stating that Miami has 100% upgraded in both of those categories. I completely disagree. I 100% could not disagree more than with what they're saying. Defensive coordinator, not so much that he's bad, but his resume doesn't speak for itself. It's not like a long list of accomplishments from any Power Five schools. They're saying that he had a top rated defense this year, blah, blah, blah. He was at Marshall. Marshall's only competitive game that they played this year, which, yes, they won on a new year head coach at Notre Dame that was off and on all year long. It wasn't like Notre Dame was a bad team or a great team. It just depends on what team you got that Saturday. Well, Marshall got the bad Notre Dame team. This air raid offense that Miami's claiming that is probably going to be in there, I think everybody needs to take a step back and look at Coach Mario Cristobal. Air raid does not fit any schematic of what he's ever done. I don't think that he's going to release his control freak abilities or wants to allow there to be a full air raid offense. Um, and to say an air raid offense doesn't mean that you don't run the ball. It air raid goes into 70% of the time you're throwing the ball. I can guarantee you that they don't do that at Miami this year. They don't have the wide receivers one to do it. Tyler Van Dyke's coming off of two terrible injuries. Who knows if he'll be 100% ready to go at the beginning of the season to throw the ball that amount of times in a game. And Mario Cristobal is not going to allow the ball to be thrown that much. He is a run first guy. I don't care what anybody says. A control freak head coach is a control freak. And they're not going to just allow the complete offense to change. And then if you change it completely, now this is the second or third offensive scheme and offensive playbook that you're going to get this offense to learn. You lost, I think it was 19 or 20 players to the transfer portal, and a lot of them were production pieces, which what little production you had. I think Miami's going to be a dumpster fire this year. I actually think they're going to be exactly where they were, if not a game worse. But I personally have them going 5-7 this year. So no, I could not disagree more that Miami is not anything for anyone to worry about. They just need to figure out if they can beat Miami, Ohio at the beginning of the season.
Um, yeah. So like I think the quote that I put on one of the tweets that you put up was and this was from back in 2018, the first time he was fired. I would rather a fan said I would rather was it I would rather sandpaper an alligator's butthole than to see him call another play at Southern Miss. You brought up the fact that and what you're doing too is you're getting two guys who literally were understudies to guys who were considered I wouldn't say savants, but that was their expertise. So Dana Holgerson is a Mike Leach protege. He's one of the guys who's every step of the way that he's gone, he's been very very good. Had a more of a spread offense as opposed to an air raid that Mike Leach ran, but it was still very similar. And then let's talk about the X's and O's of what an air raid offense is. An air raid offense is not your traditional spread where you want to try to throw the ball down the field. That's where what people have to realize is Tyler Van Dyke's strength is his arm strength, and he wants to throw the ball downfield. You have to be able to have a threat to be able to take the top off of the defense. Something that Miami didn't have possessed last year, and something that the only way they will possess it this year is if it's one of the freshmen that they have, which I'm not trying to rely on a freshman to be my number one wide receiver and expect big changes to happen. Um, Mario Cristobal is a run first guy. He's an offensive line guy. He's a tough guy. He's a machismo guy. But also, what the air raid does is, if you've ever gone back and you've looked at the Texas Tech offenses, when it's clicking, it does pose a problem to the other offense in the defense because it completely it can changes your game plan. When it's not clicking, it literally puts your defense in the worst positions because it's quick rhythm game, and it's hard to develop a quick rhythm game when you basically have a bastardized version of sprint. Your one of your quarterbacks is hurt, the other quarterback left. You have not Ja'Cory Harris. Can't think of his name. But the young man from Valdosta, you've got him who doesn't really throw, who quick game doesn't help him either. You're putting in a system with a quarterback that you don't have, And then then if you look at the coordinators that Mario Cristobal was trying to hire, none of them fit this. They all had different types of personalities, which leads me to believe that Mario Cristobal is schizophrenic. It doesn't know what he wants. It just hired the best coach that he could get in a short amount of time because everybody told him no. Or two, that Mario Cristobal is going to essentially do what Willie Taggart was trying to do with Kendall Browns. And a lot of people, a lot of media lied about Willie Taggart trying to call plays, but this is kind of how it get misconstrued and what happened. Willie Taggart's in the situation where, like, let's just take it Boise State. You're up third, you're up like by a lot of points on Boise State. All right, our defense is gassed because we're going so fast. It's hot. Let's take our ball and go home. Let's play TOP, time of possession. But when you give a coordinator full autonomy and you're making a suggestion, it starts to get friction. Now you're in an already um, house of cards scenario down in Miami. On top of the fact that you can't lose a quarter of your roster, even if you replaced it, you can't lose a quarter of your roster, not into the draft or through graduation, but through attrition and people leaving to go to other schools and still be as great and as good as you want to be. Maybe their ones are good, but but this game is about being depth if you're talking about being a championship team. And even if you are good, and let's just use Florida State as an example. I think we were really, really good with our ones for the most part. But where we struggled was the depth to be able to finish the season. So offensive coordinator, I don't think you have the quarterback. I don't think you have the wide receivers. I don't know who your running backs are going to be now. And that's not even going into the fact that your offensive line is abysmal outside of a very talented, actually a couple of talented offensive linemen that you brought in. But again, they're freshmen. One of the downsides of playing early is that you learn habits to be able to survive because you have not witnessed grown man strength before. Um, when I played as a true freshman, I did not start as a true freshman, but I played. I think that benefited me more because I got a chance to get my feet wet, but I also understood how the game was supposed to be played. And then by my sophomore year, I was ready to be a 3 year starter. Now, Lance Guidry, if you guys Florida State fans, we should know who he is if you've been following me since. Well, shout out to my OG Twitter page, getting reinstated today, by the way. If you follow Big Game James 36, who's just got out of the Twitter bid, um, we talked about coaches that were supposed to come to Florida State. Lance Guidry was supposed to be one of the original hires by Willie Taggart as a special teams coach, but he was not cleared by compliance. Well, why wasn't he cleared by compliance? And I'm not saying he has this issue now. I think he's well beyond this, but he tilted up the bottle a little bit. And this was before he became the head coach at at FCS McNeese State, where he was was a pretty good coach there at McNeese State. But he was supposed to come over to be the special teams coordinator. Didn't was with Willie Taggart at FAU, and now you have a situation where he went to Marshall, but he was the defensive coordinator under a head coach who studied under Saban, who is a defensive minded coach. He was a guy, again, that Marshall head coach was somebody that people thought Jimbo was going to bring to Florida State to be a defensive coordinator before he left. So you've got a guy who, yeah, maybe he did do well at Marshall. Was it the head coach? Was it him? Don't know, but I do know this. Nobody was beating down the door to bring Lance Guidry as your defensive coordinator. And to think that he's better upgrade than Kevin Steele, the only way I'll say that is because I'm going to see Coach Steele one day. And I just have questions about why he had a nose tackle covering a wide receiver in the flat to the wheel. That's a mismatch. But even then, there's still a lack of D line talent. Your linebacker core, even though you got the young man from Duke, is still not really where you want it to be at. And your secondary is still toast and hot garbage. So Miami has a lot of weaknesses to fill, and they have a schedule that could demoralize them. I think if I looked at it correctly, they could legitimately be 1-3 out in the first month of the football season, and that's just not going to. As passionate as the fan base is, as delusional as we love to call them, once things go bad, they tend to over state how bad things are.
Yeah, and great that you finally replaced your OC and you finally replaced your defensive coordinator. Clapping, golf clap to Mario Cristobal, I guess. But like James had started with in the conversation, that everyone that he interviewed were completely different guys. No one really fit the exact system of what they ended up hiring. In part to that, I would say that's not your first pick, your second pick, your third pick, your fourth pick. If I'm not mistaken, this was the eighth or ninth interview to take place as far as offensive coordinator goes. So it took 8 or 9 for you to land someone. That tells you that it wasn't your first pick, wasn't even your fifth pick. Hell, it might not have been the eighth pick. Could have been in the double digits in the 10th pick. I don't know, but Miami's troubles don't end because they got an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. Let's say that they were the greatest of all time, and they're not. But let's just say that they were. They're also losing Charlie Strong. They're
Kevin
also
Smith.
losing
Kevin
Kevin
Smith.
Smith. So Charlie Strong might not have been the greatest head football coach anywhere. He might not be the greatest defensive coordinator of all time either. But I think they had a better defensive coordinator already on staff before they went and hired who they did in Charlie Strong, because I think Charlie Strong is a significant step above who they just got. But with all of that, Charlie Strong has decided to leave Miami. 100% he's gone. Ed Reed left earlier in the process due to he was going to be the head football coach at Bethune-Cookman, even though that fell through. Here's the funny thing to me. These guys aren't just leaving, but they're sprinting. They're trying to get the hell out of Coral Gables, because I don't think anyone sees the light at any end of any tunnel for this Miami Hurricanes team. I think that, again, I think things are going to get worse before they get better for Miami. This isn't a Miami podcast, but they are a huge foe to Florida State, and all of these lies that are coming out. I mean, this is technically lying season, and Miami's doing a hell of a job at lying, and not only their fans, but Miami Hurricanes University Twitter page is lying for them, lying for themselves. Miami Hurricanes football stated on Twitter, explosive and well-balanced offense, check mark. Elite talent development, check mark. Game changer for offense identity, check mark. One of the best coordinators and recruiters in all of college football has arrived in Coral Gables. Welcome to the U, Coach Dawson. Not only did they lie 3 times, but they lied 5 times in that in what they just wrote. One, he's not one of the greatest recruiters. He's not a talent developer by any means of what I've seen, or by any means of what history tells. Nothing has he put into the NFL to say that they're greater because of Coach Dawson. I'm not saying that the guy is a high school or a Pee Wee coach. What I'm saying is he's not Power 5 talent. He's not Power 5 recruiting ability. He's not Power 5 anything. He's just a guy that's getting a chance, in my opinion. And if you fire this guy after 1 year, you probably don't lose too much. You probably went and got some guys due to the amount of money that you have to spend on Josh Gaddis because you fired him, the amount of money that you're having to spend on your defensive coordinator because of him leaving, however he left. Those things are still going to cost Miami money, and you need to go get 2 coaches that you could afford one, and it makes sense. I'm not stating that Miami's broke by any means. I'm just stating that it didn't make sense for you to go spend $8 million or whatever on 2 coordinators, or 6 or whatever it is ends up being. They're not paying these 2 guys no crazy amount of money. Contract details haven't dropped, but I can guarantee you they're not paying them $2 million a piece, like you would get coordinator pay at probably Alabama or Georgia at this point in time. But they're not getting that. And they're not elite by any means necessary. And I'm going to get off of Miami, and I'm going to move forward.
Hold on, Chris. One more thing, just between it. I also want to stress to people. And I talked about this on Mark Rogers. I talked about this before on my show. It is very difficult to learn a playbook in general. So a lot of people think athletes are dumb, but I would implore you, try to learn a playbook, try to execute it in real time, and just practice, and then try to execute it in the game. Now, what you have to do is you have to unlearn what you learned. So unless they hire two guys, which obviously if he's running the air raid, he doesn't run what Gaddis runs. So you having two different philosophies. You have to unlearn, and a lot of these guys are on their third philosophy in 3 years. So you're unlearning, actually, excuse me, your fourth philosophy in because Manny fired consecutive offensive coordinators.
Yep.
So and if they've been there for 5 years, I thought about this. The coordinator that Mark Richt had was different. So Mark Richt's system was different than oh man, I can't think of the coordinator who left Alabama's system, which was different than the now coach at SMU system, which was different than Gaddis's system, which is different than this. So terminology is different. It's like learning a new language. And it's easier to learn that new language when you get the playbook in the beginning of January.
Right.
It's harder to learn that new language when you get the playbook 2 weeks before spring ball starts. Because I'm assuming Miami's going to start spring ball around the same time that everybody else is, seeing as they're playing their spring game on the Friday before Florida State plays their spring game, our spring game, excuse me. So you're not just doing that on one side of the ball, you're doing that on both sides of the ball, which leads to a lot of confusion and a lot of mistakes early that are going to happen in the season, and you're going to lack confidence. So it's just, I want people to understand those things. The off season is really where you program, you fine tune. A perfect example what happened with me at Florida State. Personal example. We ran the first 3 years we had Jeff Bowden all 4 of my years, but the first 3 years we ran the traditional Bobby Bowden system. What simple play call, a lot of things in it, but the play call was simple. 44 was your sprint draw. Pass 44 was a play action off of the sprint draw. 60 was a pass protection. You add 60 sting. That was curl routes from all the wide receivers. Take off, go routes from everybody, so on and so on. We went to bring Mark McKell in from Marshall, who Marshall ran the spread system, and they retailored and revamped our entire offense. We went from 44, that's the entire play, to R base jet motion. We always had a motion, jet motion, 44, repeat 60. So what happens is, so again, I said that slow, but you're saying that fast, and in that, there's a lot of shit in there that I have to not know, or I have to remember, and I have to know when to shut my brain off and when to cut it back on. And you know what you don't really get a chance to do? Hey, oh shit, Chris or Drew. Hey man, what was that play again? It's not very easy to just say, and that's one of the more simpler ones that I can remember. So, and then when you go to, and then I joke, I had to unlearn that, go to New Orleans to Sean Payton, who spoke in fucking paragraphs. I actually was explaining to my son, he was like, Dad, why do they get 40 seconds in the NFL and only 25 seconds in college? I'm like, because you're saying a whole, you're saying a thesis
Mm-hmm.
for a play. So, I mean, those are just the things that people have to realize. I know people don't look at athletes as, and and at the same time, you're trying to learn college algebra. So, like, it's just a lot of things that you have to go into.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll jump over to recruiting a little bit. It's not a whole lot, but there is a little bit. 2024 five-star tight end commit Landon Thomas has scheduled a return visit to Florida State. He's not committed to Florida State. As a matter of fact, he's committed to Georgia. But he has visited Florida State while being committed to Georgia, and now he is committed to a revisit at Florida State coming up soon. So I think he's 6'4". I think he's right at 210, 215 pounds, and he's a five-star prospect. I mean, he's a very good tight end prospect who's coming back to Florida State for a second time. So Florida State's trying to pull one from Georgia, which if you land this kid and you get him to flip, that's a huge flip, not just because he's committed to Georgia, but because of what talent he is. And then you've got this gentleman from 2025 who has put Florida State in his top four, Hilton Stubbs. He's a 2025 safety. He's 4-star. He's got
Mandarin
four.
Mustangs.
Yep.
Wonder if they have a coach that's a Seminole.
Yeah, I think so. He's got Florida State, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Michigan in his top four schools. So that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about recruiting wise. this one's not 100%, you know, about recruiting because a lot of the recruiting things are on a dial basis right now. A lot of things are being done, but can't really be talked about. Um, Orange Park, Florida. James just told you where he went. Mandarin, where James is the head, or not head, excuse
Oh,
me,
yeah.
where James is the coach at. So James knows this young man very well for the 2025 class.
Well, I
We've
don't
got
know him well yet. He just transferred in, but he is a Mandarin kid, and we in 2025 there's a very high probability that we already have two kids from Mandarin that will commit to Florida State in that class already. What Mandarin may do if people remember First Coast High School, I think your First Coast High School when we had Avis Comac, Nigel, not Nigel Bradham, what was Nigel Carr, and man, what was the running back's name? Was it Jermaine? I forgot the running back's name, but we had three guys commit from First Coast in that one class, so maybe Mandarin will do it.
it would be nice. And to move on a little bit, we're going to bring in a little bit of information about NIL in the state of Florida, the benefits to what took place, the benefits of what you heard Dylan Gibbons talk about this a lot last year. I would say that Dylan, student wise, led the march to this for Florida State in any and every way. He met with multiple people in this situation, and he spoke highly of why it needed to take place. We've been waiting on this bill to get voted on. The House voted on it. It made it to Ron DeSantis's or DeSantis, however he says his name. It made it to his desk, the governor of Florida, and today he was accompanied by Mike Norvell, Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, and some others on Florida State side. And then he was also accompanied by, at the same time, Billy Napier and some of their student athletes. The bill was signed by Governor Ron DeSantis today. And what this does is allows the universities and the coaches to have say so and to help create or get NIL deals for their athletes. So there's a lot more that the universities can do. They can't now. It's not, oh, we can't touch this, we can't talk about this. Your coaches can't even speak on what NIL is with student athletes. All of that's gone. I don't think that takes place immediately. If I'm not mistaken, that doesn't start until August, where they can really start being involved. So the current rules or previous rules are still in place until August, but this is huge for the state of Florida. It's very good for Florida State University because obviously Norvell and other coaches have friends in high places that they can contact as far as deals go with athletes. They also can be, you know, let's say that there's a photo shoot that needs to be done. Florida State athletes can do something with Mike Norvell. There's just a lot of things that Florida State can be involved in that they previously couldn't be involved in due to the old rules. So this is a huge accomplishment for all of the universities that are across Florida. It's not just for Florida State, but I think Florida State's going to take advantage of it better than anyone else, seeing how I think that Florida State, not only do I think this, but in the ranking system for the nation, Florida State leads not only the state of Florida in NIL, but they're in the top 5 tier for NIL working at its best across the entire board of this country. So I think Florida State's going to do really well with this. I think Florida State's going to capitalize from this. I think that Florida State's going to find many different ways for the athletes to accomplish these things and it not be too much on them, because adding anything to the schedule that a student athlete has is absolutely just mind boggling. If y'all could see what their schedule is on just a daily basis, it's ridiculous. So for them to add this on, the more help they can get, the better. So I'm really happy that they get the help from the universities. James, if you want to touch on what this means for the athletes or what it means for everyone, by all means, please do.
I mean, yeah, one of the things that a lot of these guys don't do naturally is they don't know how to market themselves. I mean, their entire life moving up to this point was spent just being a good athlete, being a good student, being eligible, doing the right things, working out. And when you look at what your schedule is, very few kids come in like Michael Pittman, who has a dad that played in the NFL, has a brother that plays, who has a good system that was able to develop things. I mean, I look at him probably as the model of if my sons are good enough to be able to play. They'll have a guy who literally knows how to do this, or you've been around these people. And if you've ever gone to the draft or you ever gone to the combine, you ever gone to these things, as a former player, you still have inroads and people still meet you, and then to be able to just say, "Hey, man, my son has this YouTube channel that's got over 100,000 subscribers." Um, that kid is an aberration. He's not a reality in this. More kids are coming in raw and are making mistakes. Like when you look at what not bad mistakes, like just little stumbles, like Keem Williams in his clothing line. I know a lot of people were getting frustrated. I've been there too, Keem, because like it's tough to like when you're doing all this on your own, you're taking orders, you're trying to balance stuff, and then you want to ship things out. Stuff doesn't come in as quick. But now you have the ability to truly be, you can, and what I always liked about it is it creates more jobs. Now you can go hire some more off-field people whose sole purpose is to help develop and strategize with these kids. And one of the things that hasn't happened that much for these guys outside of like what I do personally and what Chris does personally, like I'll tell the kid, I've seen enough contracts. Send it to me. If I can't understand it, I know you can't understand it, but I can get it to people who can understand it. Now you have the ability to have somebody on campus that could be more of a liaison that could try to help you not get taken advantage of. And I think that's one of the biggest fears of everybody who's been involved or outside of NIL is, oh my God, what happens to when somebody takes advantage of these kids? And I think it's great. I think the more we can use the university's resources to help weed through and analyze deals, I think it'll be great. When I played, we didn't have NIL, but what we did have was we had we were a pro factory, so we had a lot of people talk, a lot of agents try to talk to you. So what Coach Bowden would do every year was after your last game, after we played our last game, which was Florida, we had something called Agent Day. All of the agents who participated in Agent Day were vetted by the university, made sure they had their NFLPA credentials. We also have financial planners that were there that were vetted and had their NFLPA credentials. And you could go by and see them or set up appointments so that you could sit there in a safe environment that's not the shady bars. Now that stuff did happen, but the university still provided a service. So now the university can actually take a step in the right direction and say, hey, we've got Powerade that's here that wants to put aside an extra $1 million and they want to talk to these 15 athletes. We have State Farm that does donate a lot of money. So now you can almost see Rising Spear or Battles In working in conjunction with the boosters now, so that now we can now that we can do more stuff as opposed to I kind of need to know, but I don't want to know what's
Right.
going on over there with the NIL.
Exactly. And so everyone knows in Senate, 34 senators voted to support the bill, 0 voted against it. So all the senators agreed that this needed to take place, which is great for the support. When you have 0 veto it and everyone's for it, that means that it's a good bill. It means that it's gonna serve its duty. So that's great. And then moving, staying on the Florida State football side of things a little bit, spring practices schedule has been dropped so that everybody can see it. If you check out the YouTube channel, go to community, or you can go to the Facebook page, or you can also go to our Twitters or Instagrams, and you will see this graphic. But the spring practices start March 6th, March 8th, March 10th, March 21st is the coaches clinic, March 20th is another coaches clinic, and April 15th is the spring game. There are practices in between those, but I gave you the first 3 or 4 practices, then the coaching clinics, and then also the spring game. A huge shout out and kudos to the Lady Knowles basketball team, who are ranked 24. Their current record is 21-7. They beat Syracuse tonight. And then the Knowles softball team are obviously down at the Clearwater Classic, and they played against Arizona, and they were able to win. They pulled that game off 6-4. Arizona is ranked, I think, 15th in the nation, while the Knowles are currently ranked at number 7. But we were able to knock Arizona off in the Clearwater Classic, and it was kind of crazy because Sandra Cock, obviously everyone knows she's our ace pitcher. As long as she's been here, she pitched in this game, and then she was moved to right field when they brought in McKenna, which is the freshman who absolutely just saved the game. I mean, she literally got awarded with the save on this game. But she's a left-handed pitcher. She's a true freshman. But you had Sandra Cock in right field, and then when a certain batter came up that hit to right field last time, they moved her over to left field and put Mudge in the right. And it shows you how good Coach Lonnie is because the moment that they switched positions, a pop fly was hit to the warning track in right field. Mudge was able to get it for the third out. So why Sandra Cock was in the outfield, I'm not sure. But she was, and we kept harm out of her way, and we were able to pull off the win. And kudos to McKenna for getting the save. That's her first save of the season, and she's a true freshman. Michael, I want to make sure I'm saying his name right. Bartz, thanks for the $5 donation. Per character lying on the side, raising his arm while saying, "How is it going?" Okay, so it's not showing me what emoji you used, so it just explained it. So I don't know exactly what that is, but I appreciate the $5 donation. If you've got a question, Michael, throw it up and I'll put it up there and answer it for you, seeing how you already donated the $5 with the super sticker, is what I'm assuming that is. He also said, really appreciate you all keeping us up to date with our Knowles. That's the whole reason that we're here. The whole reason I do this show, and James does the show, is to keep everyone up to date. Baseball's opening game is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mike Norvell will be throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Also, the baseball team is going to do something really cool this year. It's going to be in March. We released that video from FloridaState.com where Coach Link was talking about getting ready for the season, getting his athletes, these new guys that just came in, acclimated and getting them ready for the season to kick off. I'm saying kick off, start off. And what's really cool, though, in March, I think it's March the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, I could be, but in March, we're retiring Buster Posey's jersey, and a lot of people had questioned whether Buster Posey was going to be there or not. Don't know why they were wondering if he was going to be there or not, but he 100% is supposed to be there. He's scheduled to be there. So make sure that you go out to the March 11th game and check out the retirement of Buster Posey's jersey, and also if you can catch an autograph or something to that nature with Buster. He just recently retired from the MLB, had a very successful major league career, was a great accomplishment story, to be completely honest. Buster Posey is, I don't know, probably one of the best catchers Florida State's ever had. He's also a great hitter. Most catchers are. And what he was able to do at San Francisco for the Giants was amazing. So make sure that you go support the baseball team, because not only does our football team put them in the NFL, but our baseball team puts them in the major leagues as well. So make sure that you check that out. Michael Bartz did reach out with a question. Obviously, everybody should know Buster's jersey number, which is number 8. But here's Michael's question. Yes, sir. Just wondering if there's any more talk about us moving to the Big Ten. All right. So I'll touch on this real quick. All the evidence that I've given everyone stating why I think we're going to the Big Ten. If you don't know what that is, go back and check that episode out, because I'm not going to go through all of it. But another thing that just happened at Florida State, which is quite wild, for the 2022 season, during Black History Month, we sent Derek McClendon to, I think it's called Big Ten Life Series. We sent him to the Big Ten Life Series where he's wearing a Big Ten t shirt. He is talking to the Big Ten commissioner. He's talking to all Big Ten schools, but he's representing Florida State. I don't. I didn't see a Clemson player. I didn't see an NC State player. I didn't see a Miami player. I didn't see any SEC schools players. I saw Big Ten kids, and I saw Derek McClendon. So Derek McClendon was there as of last year. That video was just released for Black History Month this year, which is still going on. So if you can find it on the Big Ten Network or look it up on YouTube, it's called the Big Ten Life Series. You can see Derek McClendon as a part of the Big Ten. So there's one more hint that I didn't give you in that episode. Here's another one. I want to say it's called Jet Blue or something to that nature. Tallahassee just landed a contract with them, which is a airline. Y'all want to go figure where that airline goes to a lot? Where they're basically based out of flying to and from most of the year, all the time. Big Ten country. I wonder why Tallahassee needs Big Ten flights. Anyways, long story short, that's all I've got for the Big Ten movement. As far as I think Florida State will announce that by 2025. That's my prediction. Could be completely wrong on that. But my prediction is by 2025, you will hear that Florida State is going to be joining the Big Ten. And again, that's just my opinion. Could be completely wrong. If y'all want to ridicule me for it in 2025, I'm all for it. But maybe y'all all be saying that I've did my research and really figured something out. Because I personally think that Florida State is going to the Big Ten. There's too many things lining up. We just dropped our research medical facility. Also, we're going to build one
Who
of
has the
the
best? Who has the best research medical facilities?
Yep. You got to
It's
become a
just it's just makes like from a like I think I said it on this show. Just like it from a I've always said it. It just makes more sense for what the Big Ten is trying to do and what Florida State's trying to do to join the Big Ten and not the SEC. And then just from a city of Tallahassee thing, if for what Florida State's taking, the only way the $20 million makes sense because it was a bad deal for the city of Tallahassee. It was a great deal for Florida State. Multiple things could be true. The only way it makes more sense is if it brings more recognition and more resources. So what happens is if you've never been to like there are SEC schools that won't sell us out. There isn't a Big Ten school that they'll put on the schedule for our home slate that won't sell us out. We will all Florida like for people who don't live in Florida, Tallahassee is Miami. I've seen it with Jacksonville. So the reason why Jacksonville Jaguars play in London so much, if you look at the way they market Jacksonville, it looks like they're marketing Miami.
Yep.
So like to them, it's all about yes, the Jags play there once or twice a year, but it's always about bringing international tourism to the hub. So like when you talk about bringing JetBlue, you're talking about making it easier to be able to fly into here in a 2 hour radius the economic impact that will be had on the city. So when I think about when we played Penn State was damn near when we played Penn State in the Orange Bowl, my last game, it was damn near a Penn State home crowd. When you think about Ohio State, they travel, and then also going out west, LA. You have UCLA, USC. So they went to the west. They've got the Midwest. They've got schools on the East Coast, in Maryland. There is only one other place that they can potentially go to be able to be a nationwide conference, and that's to the South. Now, the one thing I will say is that Florida State will not have their two out of conference games be the University of Florida and Miami. That's asinine. So we probably will bring our little sister with us when we go to the Big Ten in some way, shape, or form. And now Miami does have a medical school, they have a law school, they have a lot of other check marks that Big Ten schools do have. But I've always said it from jump, and people have fought me. I'm just like, guys, y'all have been indoctrinated to believe that the SEC plays the best football. The SEC has the best team year in and year out. They don't have the best football conference. The Big Ten has the best football conference. year in and year out. And when you look at also us being box office boys, from a TV perspective, we make more sense than anybody else. So now you're going to have LA, you'll have the dominated LA market, you'll have us. It grows us. I think Florida State's the number one goal is for and why they brought in our previous president Thrasher was to make Florida State the university overall become the primary institution in the state of Florida. We're in competition in every aspect, not with UCF, not with USF, with UF. And the only way you have our Mag Lab, we're becoming a medical research facility with the partnership with TMH. The law school is getting bigger. We have one of the best co-engineering schools, but it's the reason why and I remember FAMU people being upset, but the reason why Thrasher pushed for Florida State to have their own engineering school had nothing to do with racism. It had everything to do with business.
Yep.
And that's the only reason. But still, you even with the co-brand, you still have one of the best engineering schools in the nation with the FAMU. So it's just like everything that Florida State has been trying to do over the last 10 years, if you've been paying attention, it lines up directly with what the Big Ten does. Not just as a football conference, obviously the money in athletics, but as a universities as well.
Yeah, what's really cool is with here's the engineering side of this, and I'm not going to bore y'all too much to death. That's my field of work. Other than this, is civil engineering, and we'll just say that Florida State's going to be doing some really cool things in the near future with seismic research. Seismic research being in earthquakes. The New Madrid fault line doesn't run through the state of Florida, but it is just to the west of us a little bit, and they're teaching engineers in that co-engineering school that we're talking about. There's a lot going on, and engineering-wise for Florida State is going up through the roof. Some really cool things are happening. So there's going to be a research study on seismic, which to be an AAU member, research is like the biggest thing. We're creating the medical research facility, but the engineers side of it has already started in seismic research. Seismic studies are starting to happen. Florida engineers, as far as Florida State engineer students, are starting to really dive deep into seismic studies. So get ready, because too many things are lining up to try to become an AAU member. Too many things are lining up for us to become a Big Ten member. So I just don't see, unless the SEC comes in and says, no, we're not allowing the Big Ten to get this market. We'll give y'all X for y'all to come here. I still don't see them being able to offer more money than the Big Ten. So I think Florida State then therefore has that option. And I think Florida State would be smart and pick the Big Ten, not just based off of money, but based off of what that opens up for you as a university as a whole, not just football. What it will do for Florida State University will be, it's just it's the magnitude of things that we all don't understand. But universities are a business. It's about capitalism. And Florida State would capitalize so much if they become a Big Ten member. It would just be ridiculous, the amount of money for research that gets poured into the state, into this university alone. So with that, it is just a prediction, and I am just predicting that we go to the Big Ten. James has been talking about it. I've been talking about it. Then everyone else started talking about it. So we'll see what happens. From a revenue standpoint, the Big Ten would be the best fit. Revenue and for multiple other reasons, yes. The other reasons are the reasons that we were talking about previous to that comment. Like, there's just so many things that benefit this university if we become a Big Ten and an AAU member. It would be huge. And then you start playing teams like Nebraska again. Then you start playing Michigan and Ohio State on a regular basis. And you do bring your little sister along. And they also get the Miami market, which is a package deal. It'd be great. Because like James said, we're not going to schedule both out-of-conference games with our two in-state rivals. So it makes sense that we bring our little sister along. They'll get an offer. They'll be able to come with us because the ACC is going to plummet. I think Clemson ends up going to the SEC because they don't have the research facilities. They also don't have the grades, from what I've been told, not based off of my research, someone else's. They don't have the grades to get into the AAU or the Big Ten. They don't. They don't force upon that or something to that nature. But we've got about 5 minutes left, James. Let everybody know where they can find you and that they need to be going to the YouTube page. And I'll let you get off here and I'll finish this thing off.
All right. Yeah. At Din Media Group, we're at I think we're like right almost at 1560. Need to get that thing to 2,000. The minute we get it to 2,000, we'll be giving a giveaway live on a show. We'll give away $200. As long as you're watching the show, then we'll be giving it away. Also, we have our membership channels. You have anywhere from $3.99 to $100. The $100 one includes a $36 donation to the MFTK Foundation, as well as if you're paying that for multiple months. When it comes time for you know, not bowl game, excuse me, tailgates, different things like that, you're covered for those. If you're looking at my videos for how I partied at the Super Bowl, you get to party like me, like that at the Super Bowl, wherever I'm in, you're in, if that's what you're into. But the biggest thing is everything that goes to that YouTube channel will go directly into the MFTK Foundation. And we're taking 200 kids, 125 of which from North Florida, from Boys Town in North Florida. We're taking them to the basketball game to also meet it's not just boys, it's boys and girls, but and families. And then I'm bringing 50 kids from my elementary school, Appalachia. And if anybody wants to go to the women's basketball game, I've got 150 tickets. I think we're taking 60 from Boys Town, and some other places. So we got plenty of tickets for that. But if you want to help raise any funds for that, I would suggest just go become a member of our YouTube channel, or if you want to just do a one-time donation, money sign MFTK36 or MFTK Foundation on Venmo, or are the two ways to go about doing that. But really would appreciate growing the subscribers on the YouTube channel, and as always, go Noles.
Go Knowles. Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Everyone, I hope that you enjoyed the episode tonight. If you don't mind, stick around for a couple more minutes. Because I want to get something off of my chest so people to understand this. One, first and foremost, please make sure that you subscribe to the Spirit Addicts channel. It's 100% free. I'm not asking you to spend the dime. I just want you to subscribe to the channel. It helps me with viewership. It helps the algorithm. And it also helps me know that you support Spirit Addicts and what we talk about as far as Florida State goes. I was asked by multiple people at the university. I was asked by multiple players. I was asked by multiple fans to do this. You see that I have a membership base now. You see that I offer giveaways. I don't only do the giveaways for the members that are paying a subscription, but I also do it for subscribers that aren't paying anything. I want this known, and I want this known now. This is not my day-to-day job. This is something that I do for the love of the game, for the love of the university. I was asked to do these things. So what I mean by that is if you can afford to become a member to get those perks as far as tailgate tickets, possible wins to the bowl game, possible tickets to an ACC championship, possible tickets to the Florida game at the end of the year. That's for the paid members. Also give tickets away to just subscribers. Also just to our Facebook members. I do it as much as I can and as much as I can afford. Those that pay, if you are a member or you're on my Discord or you're on YouTube as a member, when you pay, 20% of that money goes towards the athletes at Florida State University. 100% can prove that to you if you would like to see it. If you recall, last year around when NIL first started, I did an NIL deal personally out of my pocket. I put $5,000 toward Robert Scott Jr. That's who I gave it to. That was the deal that I did. He came on the Spirit Addicts. He did the things that I asked him to because there has to be a clear ask and a clear give. This is going to end on Boxcast, but I'm going to go over just a couple of minutes to complete this. So you're going to hear me act like I'm ending the show, but I'm really not. And then I'm going to continue on. But everyone, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for being a huge part of what Spirit Addicts does. And as always, go Noles. Now that that's the end of the TV program.